Before we jump into today's story, I want to ask you for just a quick moment. If you're someone who connects with stories about real emotions, life-changing moments that happen quietly, second chances, and those experiences that completely reshape who you are, then this is your kind of place. So, if you like thoughtful stories like the one you're about to hear, please hit that subscribe button. Every story I share here comes from experiences that tons of people go through, but almost nobody talks about out loud. Those lonely moments. Those times when you really think about your life. Those moments when everything suddenly goes in a different direction without any warning at all. And sometimes those moments start in the most regular, everyday ways. So let's get into it. Emily always thought that when life really changed, it would be loud and obvious. She pictured big dramatic talks, major decisions happening during heated arguments, moments where everything suddenly flipped in a way nobody could miss. That's what she expected when she was younger. But as time went on, life showed her something completely different. The most important turning points almost never show up with a lot of noise. Instead, they sneak into regular, everyday moments. A quick conversation. A minor decision. A totally normal afternoon that feels completely meaningless at the time. But somehow those tiny moments quietly change everything. On that warm Saturday afternoon in late spring, Emily thought she was just picking out what to wear. Nothing special, just a regular choice. But sometimes the tiniest decisions quietly start the biggest changes. Sunshine streamed through the tall windows of Emily's house in the suburbs of Oregon, spreading warm golden light all over the hardwood floors. Outside, the neighborhood felt calm and peaceful. A gentle breeze moved through the leaves of the big maple tree in her front yard. Somewhere close by, birds were chirping softly, filling the quiet with gentle sounds of life going on like normal. It was the kind of afternoon most people would call absolutely perfect. But inside the house, something felt off. The silence inside Emily's home wasn't the nice, peaceful kind. It was the heavy kind. The kind of silence that reminds you just how empty a place can feel. The kind that sort of echoes a little when you walk down the hallway. The kind that makes a house feel bigger than it actually is. Emily stood in front of her bedroom mirror longer than usual. She looked at herself carefully. Her face showed a quiet mix of curiosity and uncertainty, almost like she was looking at someone she knew, but who had somehow changed. At 38 years old, Emily sometimes felt like she was still trying to figure out who she was again. Life had this weird way of changing people slowly, not all at once, but little by little quietly over time, until one day you stop long enough to notice that something inside you isn't the same anymore. She adjusted the bottom of her navy blue skirt, smoothing the fabric gently with her hands. The skirt wasn't flashy. It wasn't super bold, but it was definitely shorter than anything she'd worn in years. Her fingers stayed there for a second, almost like she was second-guessing herself. She could still change her mind. It would be so easy. All she had to do was walk back to the closet and grab something safer, something more familiar, something comfortable, something that let her quietly fade into the background the way she'd gotten used to doing. For just a second, she thought about it. But instead, Emily straightened her shoulders. The skirt stayed. She paired it with a soft white blouse that draped nicely across her shoulders. The whole outfit was simple, elegant without trying too hard, clean, quietly confident. She slipped into a pair of low heels that finished the look. Nothing about the outfit screamed for attention. But there was something different about it, something intentional. And that alone made it feel strange because for the first time in a really long time, Emily wasn't getting dressed to disappear. She wasn't dressing to blend into the background of her own life. Today, she was dressing for herself. 2 years earlier, her marriage had ended. Not with screaming fights. Not with cheating or betrayal. Not with the big dramatic explosions people usually picture when relationships fall apart. Instead, it ended quietly, slowly, like a candle burning lower and lower until that final flicker finally goes out. After more than 10 years together, Emily and her husband had just grown tired. Not angry, just tired. Day-to-day responsibilities kept piling up. Work stress got worse. Conversations got shorter. Silences got longer. The space between them slowly grew, even though they still lived in the same house. At first, neither of them noticed. Then they noticed, but chose to ignore it. Then eventually they tried to fix it. They had long talks. They promised to work harder at it. They tried to bring back the warmth they used to share. But sometimes love by itself just isn't enough to keep two people moving in the same direction. Eventually, they both quietly realized the same thing. They'd become strangers living in the same life. And so the marriage ended. Not with anger, just acceptance. After the divorce, the house stayed exactly the same. The furniture didn't move. The pictures still hung on the walls. The kitchen still smelled like coffee every morning. But something important was missing. The warmth, the laughter, the shared routines that used to fill the rooms with energy. First, the laughter went away. Then the conversations. Then the simple comfort of knowing someone really saw you. The house hadn't changed, but the life inside it had. Most days after the divorce felt weirdly automatic. Emily woke up early, made coffee, went to work, answered emails, sat through meetings, paid bills, smiled politely when conversations needed it. From the outside, her life looked totally normal, stable, organized, predictable. But inside, something had changed. Something quieter. Something harder to put into words. Her friends still cared about her. Of course they did. But their lives were packed. Families, kids, careers, responsibilities that filled up every corner of their time. Dinners together became rare. Long conversations got shorter. And those random drop-in visits slowly disappeared. Nobody meant to leave her behind. Life just kept moving. And sometimes people drift apart without even noticing. But today felt a little different. Earlier that morning, Emily's phone buzzed with a text from her closest friend, Laura. The message was short and simple. "Hey, I'll stop by later with Jason to pick up those documents you borrowed." Emily had smiled when she read it. Laura had always been one of the few steady people in her life. Through the tough years, through the quiet struggles in her marriage, through the painful months after the divorce, Laura had stayed supportive, loyal, reliable. Jason had always been part of that friendship too, but mostly just in the background. Emily had known him since he was a kid. She remembered birthday parties with balloons and loud laughter, scraped knees and playground arguments, school plays, soccer games. Those awkward teenage years where Jason barely said more than a few words at a time. In her mind, those memories had frozen him in place. She hadn't stopped to think about the simple fact that time had kept moving forward for him too. With one last look in the mirror, Emily brushed her hair gently behind her ear. Then she took a slow breath and headed downstairs. In the kitchen, she started preparing drinks without really thinking about why. She set 3 glasses neatly on the counter. She filled a pitcher with lemonade, then dropped a few ice cubes inside. The ice clinked softly against the glass as she poured. For a second, she noticed something weird. Her hands were shaking a little. Emily paused and frowned. "Why am I nervous?" she whispered quietly to herself. It didn't make sense. This wasn't a date. She wasn't meeting strangers. It was just Laura. Just Jason. And yet, something about the afternoon carried a feeling she couldn't quite explain. Before she could think about it any longer, the doorbell rang. Emily took a slow breath. She smoothed her skirt one more time, then walked toward the front door. When she opened it, Laura stood there first. Her familiar bright smile instantly filled the doorway with warmth. "Hey," Laura said cheerfully as she stepped inside. "Thanks again for letting me stop by." "Of course," Emily replied with a warm smile. Then her eyes shifted slightly. Jason stood just behind his mother. And for just a second, Emily didn't recognize him. He was taller than she remembered. Much taller. His shoulders were broader. His posture was relaxed but confident. His dark hair was neatly styled, and the awkward teenage uncertainty she remembered had been replaced by something calmer, something more self-assured. He wasn't a boy anymore. He was a man. Their eyes met briefly. Jason's gaze flickered downward for just a second, instinctively noticing her outfit before coming quickly back to her face. The movement was subtle, almost invisible, but Emily noticed it. "Hi, Jason," she said calmly. "Hey, Emily," he replied. Then he cleared his throat slightly. "You look nice." The compliment was simple but honest. Emily felt warmth rise to her cheeks. Thank you, she replied softly. Laura, totally unaware of the quiet moment that had just passed between them, kept chatting as they moved toward the living room. Jason sat down on the couch, resting his hands neatly on his knees while listening to the conversation. Emily took a seat across from them. Out of habit, she crossed her legs slightly, and once again she noticed Jason glance away quickly. Not staring, not inappropriate, but the small detail quietly stayed in her thoughts. Laura kept talking about work frustrations, office drama, and the chaos of managing a tough team. Emily nodded here and there, offering small responses when needed. But underneath the normal conversation, something subtle had shifted in the room. Nothing inappropriate had happened. Nothing uncomfortable. And yet, there was this strange awareness in the air. After a few minutes, Laura's phone buzzed. She glanced down and frowned. Oh no, I totally forgot. I need to call my boss. She stood up and pointed toward the front door. I'll just step outside for a minute. Then she turned to Jason. Can you grab those papers from Emily while I'm gone? Jason nodded casually. Yeah, sure, Mom. And just like that, for the first time that afternoon, Emily and Jason were left alone in the room.